Welcome to Vape News Radio, the voice of vaping. In each show, we share the latest about regulations and things you need to know, plus upcoming conferences and fests, along with interviews with the movers and shakers in this fabulous vape space. Are you looking to get into this ever-expanding marketplace? Do you want to master this industry? Listen up as Norm Bauer, the Vape Mentor, shares it all. And here's your host, Norm Bauer.
Hello and welcome to Vape Radio, the voice of vaping, and this is show number 78. I'm Norm Bauer with Vape Mentors, and today's show is sponsored by Level 13 Liquids. Are you concerned about PMTA? Do you not have a juice line and maybe you want one? Level 13 offers you a turnkey program that can get your house brand on your shelves in just a few weeks. If you are concerned about the August 8th deadline, then let us know and we'll get you started with your own house line. Also letting you know, we're still offering free webinar classes on how to open a vape shop. People ask, is it too late? And we say, no, it's really not, but it's going to be different. We cover what you need to know about regulations, locations, size of your shop, and inventory. If you are not on our mailing list, visit vapementors.com to sign up. If you look back through the history of civilization, there is a line in the sand, a demarcation, if you will, between what came before and what came after. That benchmark I refer to is when we changed our calendars from the BC designation to the AD designation after the birth of Christ. We have a similar transition in our vaping world, and that line in the sand was moved on May 10th, 2016, which was the date the new FDA deeming regulation countdown started. It's been busy since then. Many are gnashing their teeth and wringing their hands, and others, they're adapting to the brave new world, as I call it. I recently spoke at an event in Las Vegas called VPX, and I said from the stage, if you think the industry is dead, you are absolutely right. And if you think the industry and your business will survive, you are right as well. It's all a matter of mindset and attitude. I've already seen signs that many are fighting back, and that event had the greatest engagement for advocacy than I have ever seen. If you can believe it, there was standing room only crowd of more than 300 people listening to speakers from CASA, SFATA, and Not Blowing Smoke. Along with the great attendance for the speakers, there were also about 175 exhibitors there, and the place was packed for 2.5 days that I was there. Among the presenters were two guys that spoke about a movie called A Billion Lives. I heard about this movie several months ago and was curious about it. Why is it important? How can I view it? I met with the team, and the result is the conversation you're about to hear. The interview coming up is with Arnuad Dumas de Rauly, and if that sounds French, it's because it is. Arnaud is from France and is the president of GaiaTrend, one of the largest liquid manufacturers in Europe. Joining him on stage was Kurt Loblick with Cloud Chasers, and they were there to share info and updates on this movie. Stay tuned for that. It's coming right up in just a moment. Meanwhile, a few more things to share. Since we have an international audience here on Vape Radio, I wanted to let you know that I'll be speaking at 3 events this summer in Amsterdam, Prague, and Warsaw. If you plan to attend any of these events, which are promoted by Smile Expo, please look me up and let's connect in person. I'll be there for 2 weeks, and I'd love to see some European shops and factories. Send me a note to norm@vapementors.com. Coming up in a few weeks is the most complete online vape training program you'll ever find. Starting June 23rd and continuing for 4 days, we're going to be offering 20 hours and about 18 speakers sharing everything you need to know if you are a vape shop owner. More info is available at vapementors.com. No question, the world of vape is changing and you must change with it. This FDA debacle is not my first crisis, and it may not be my last. What I can tell you after living through 4 recessions and many downturns, the key to survival is adaptation. If you think you can keep doing what you're doing, you might as well go away right now and leave more fruit for us that will adapt. So with that as my intro, let's find out about A Billion Lives coming to a theater near you.
Welcome back to Vape Radio. This is Norm Bauer, the voice of vaping. If you've been around for a while, you've probably heard talk about this movie out there called A Billion Lives. What the hell is that all about? Who are these billion? What are they referring to? Well, what they're referring to are the billions of people that are smoking tobacco cigarettes throughout the world right now. And I have an interview here with a gentleman who has been involved with this movie called A Billion Lives. His name is Arnuad Dumas
de
Rauly, and he's from France. And this is a gentleman I just recently had the pleasure to meet. And he is a friend of the director of the movie. So, Arnaud, welcome to Vape Radio.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. So, first off, tell us a little about yourself and how you are involved in the e-cigarette industry, and then we want to talk about specifically the movie.
Okay, so, well, I'm currently president of GaiaTrend. We manufacture a French liquid called Alpha Liquid. We've been in the business since 2008. We are the biggest European independent player. And I came across vaping when my wife sent me an ad, a Groupon ad, showing that you can have an e-cig with an e-liquid for $10. And I immediately, and to be honest, I called friends in China to see how much it cost to make, and I saw the difference. And this was a business decision. And my partners never really got involved into the entire vaping culture, but I felt the need to help out this entire nascent industry. And being in France, and obviously, as you can hear me speaking English, I was able to help the French Trade Association with all the negotiations in Brussels. So they eventually asked me to become president of that trade association, which I was for 2 years. And during that entire time, we went through the entire TPD process in Europe. Everyone was saying it's bad. Now that I see what's happening here in FDA, I'm actually happy to be European.
It's all relative, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when I moved back to the U.S. in last November, I was approached by VTA to see if I could become a board member.
All right, so let's step back for a second. Tell everyone what VTA is, because this is a relatively new organization.
Exactly. VTA is Vapor Technology Association. We work mainly at the federal level, but we are able to have a strategy in 3 points. One, which is really lobbying. The second is at the state level as well, lobbying at the federal level, at the state level. And combine all of that into a PR solution, because right now this is what we thought was missing, is getting the word out.
Excellent. All right. So I needed to make sure that you all out there knew what the background was, so that you know that Arnaud is not just here as part of media, part of the film industry or anything else like that. Does he have an agenda? Of course he has an agenda. We all have an agenda, and the agenda is the freedom to vape without, I'm going to say, relatively light government interference. Of course, as we're recording this, the FDA just in the last few weeks came out with their very heavy-handed regulations, which we're going to save those conversations for another time. But specifically, Arnaud, what I want to talk about is this movie called A Billion Lives. I've been hearing about this thing for quite a few months, and I really didn't know what it was. So why don't you give everyone an overview of what this movie is about, and we're going to kind of dissect it a little bit, and then we're going to talk about things that we in the vaping community can do to make it known that this movie does exist so we can share it. Because understand, ladies and gentlemen, this decision by the FDA and by the TPD overseas affects all of us. For those of you who are listening who are in the business community, you better be damn sure you know that this is going to be impacting your business. And if you are a consumer, which means that you are not making money in the vaping industry, this is going to have a serious impact on you as well, because you are going to have a much, much lesser amount of selections of vaping products. So with that being said, tell me about A Billion Lies.
All right, I will. My involvement with A Billion Lies is not commercial at all. Aaron is a good friend of mine.
Aaron is?
Aaron Bieber, the director of the movie. And he called me up a couple of weeks before the premiere and asked me if I could help him find sponsors for the after party in New Zealand.
Well, let's step back for a second. What is his motivation to create a movie about vaping in the first place? Is he a cinematographer? Is he a director? Or is he in the vaping industry?
Well, his company is called Attention Era Media, and they make commercials. They make short films for corporate entities. And well, he's been in this business for a while, in this video making business. And every year he steps on a project, and a longer project. And this is his first really long movie, because he heard about vaping and quickly switched. He's not a vapor. No one in their team is a vapor, and no one in their team is a smoker. And I believe this is what makes the film so powerful.
So they went in as a documentarian to say, let's take a look at this industry that we heard about but don't really participate in, and let's find out what all the controversy is.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Find out the truth. That's the main tagline of the movie. The truth needs to be known. So the two main aspects of this movie and the two messages that are coming across is, first of all, you have a lot of professors, a lot of scientific people in the movie, and they explain that nicotine is not what's dangerous in a cigarette, contrary to public belief. Everyone says, oh, well, there's nicotine in there, so it's as dangerous as a cigarette. That's not dangerous. It's the combustion that's dangerous. And the second aspect of this movie is to show that vaping is not big tobacco, which is very, very hard to grasp with the American public because all the indicators and the KPIs for vaping are based on Nielsen studies. Nielsen studies what traditional retail does. And obviously in traditional retail, what do you have? You have products like Blue, you have products like Views, which are big tobacco. So in all these studies, you just see that vaping belongs to big tobacco. And that's just not true. To give you an example, in Europe, these big tobacco cigarettes represent 2% of the market. The rest is all independent vape. So that is the second message that needs to go out to the general public. And I insist, this movie, I said it at ECC, and I'm saying it again here, this movie is not for vapors. Even though all the vapors know about it, and it's a good general culture, it is for the general public. Right. This movie, and I'm passionate about it because I believe this movie can help us in all of our advocacy efforts.
All right, so let's set the stage for this. And for those of you who are out there who are listening, who are in the vaping community, this might seem a little bit simplistic, but you have a very divisive line in the sand between the e-cigarette community and the vaping community. And it's a very, very distinct difference. And of course, the e-cigarette community is primarily dominated by what we collectively call big tobacco. These are the Blues of the world, the New Marks, and these are the cigalites that reproduce the feel and the touch and are usually what they call a closed tank system. And then you have the other side of the equation, which is the vaping scenario, where you have an e-liquid that you are using a vaping device and so forth and so on. I'm not going to go back into the mechanics of how it all works, but there's a very, very distinct difference. And one of the challenges that we have right now is the deeming regulations were very heavily influenced by big tobacco lobbyists and money. So the way it stands right now is that they are, I'm not going to say supporting closed tank systems or e-cig systems, but they are allowing them to be more or less allowed, as opposed to the vaping system, which is having to go through an incredible amount of very expensive regulation. So I just kind of wanted to set the stage and interject some of those things as we get back to the movie. So the movie, the idea, the concept came from Aaron Biebert, and he decided to investigate this thing called vaping as a non-vapor. And where's he based out of? Is he a UK?
In Milwaukee.
In Milwaukee. So it's a US-based movie.
Exactly.
All right. So their premise was they went in with no, what you would call agenda. They just wanted to find out, what were they looking for? To find out why the criticism was there. Is it really a healthy alternative? All of the above?
Exactly. All of the above. It's just as if you're talking to your aunt who knows nothing about vaping, and you're giving her facts that in the end lets her make up her mind on this entire tobacco versus vaping side of things. The movie, I'm not going to talk too much about what's in it because I want everyone to see it, but the movie starts off with personality from Big Tobacco who completely switched side because his brother died of cancer. And he goes into a little bit of detail explaining what happened behind the scenes in certain Big Tobacco meetings. And then there's the focus on the scientific part. So you've got to focus on Derek Yak. Got to focus from Attila Danko from Australia, all these public health people, Clive Bates, and even the first electronic cigarette forum from Oliver Kershaw is present in this movie just to explain to everyone what's going on. At the end of the movie, you have a clear picture in your head. You know exactly what Big Tobacco has been doing for years. And you know what the vaping industry is and why the vaping industry is so powerful, why this is a grassroots movement, and specifically why vaping can help save 1 billion lives.
Well, there's a lot of irony and there's a lot of hypocrisy out there. And the example you mentioned before about people saying, oh, you shouldn't be using vaping products because it's got nicotine. And of course, nicotine is not necessarily a bad ingredient. It's probably no more dangerous or damaging than what caffeine is. It's just very, very light, energy release. It's the inhalation process. It's the combustion aspect of cigarettes that's so damaging. And that's where the hypocrisy comes in, because regular tobacco analog cigarettes, of course, are 100% legal, and they are where the cancer agents are, the 4,000 or so elements that are released just by putting a cigarette lighter or a match to a cigarette, whereas with vaping liquid, it has a few little components that maybe are questionable, which are in the process of being phased out. But, what I want to talk about, Arnaud, is that I recently viewed a documentary put out by the BBC. And this was a very scientific documentary, and it showed the scientific research. They actually interviewed a gentleman from one of the tobacco companies, and they showed the amount of dangerous chemicals that are released by tobacco, and they showed it in a graph, and then they showed the amount of dangerous tobaccos that are involved with vaping, and it was barely perceptible. And even here, as a tobacco guy, this is kind of what really, jarred me aside the head. Here we have a tobacco guy who right there is acknowledging that tobacco, cigarettes are bad and vaping is not as bad, but yet here we are. So the point I'm making is that we have these quote unquote scientific studies. We have all this validation. So why does Aaron feel that this movie will make a difference? What is the ball grabber, so to speak, that's going to make people say, oh, wow, I was wrong, or oh, wow, I didn't know this? In other words, how can we get value out of this movie that we're going to hopefully see sometime in 2016?
Yep. Well, the value that you get out of this movie is from listening to all these people talking about their personal experiences, and that sort of gets to your emotional side, and then all of that is backed by evidence from the scientific community. But the main thing about this movie that a lot of studies don't do is literally comparing vaping to tobacco. Because, of course, putting something in your lungs where it's not supposed to be is obviously more dangerous than not doing anything. Everyone knows that. Right. This is just common sense. But there's an example I like to take in France, and I know it's not politically correct, but I'm going to say it anyways. In France, there are 76,000 people per year that die from tobacco. If in 20 years there's no tobacco, there's only vaping, and there are only 1,000 people that die.
Wow. Well, that's a huge mortality drop.
Why not? Why not? And people are talking about the intake of these kind of substances, and more call 1.5 thousand rise in poison center calls about vaping. Guys, just compare this. All of these studies are never compared. Compare that to toothpaste. There's 2 times more people that call for the poison center control for toothpaste than for e-liquids. But the media is just picking up these little segments of these studies. And these studies are really geared towards the media and to make big headlines. To me, a study that does not compare tobacco versus vaping is useless. And that is the most important thing that you get with this movie. There is really tobacco versus vaping.
All right, so where it is right now, the movie is done. It was recently premiered in New Zealand, and at some point in time, it's going to come to the United States. Is this what you would call a feature-length film? Is it over an hour in duration?
It lasts about an hour and a half.
Okay, so the premise is that you here as a representative of 1 Billion Lives. What is it that you want us to do? In other words, how do we get a chance to view this movie? I've heard some talk that maybe there's conversations with Netflix. There's some talk about releasing it through some of the larger movie chains, putting it out on DVD. So I'm listening to this. I'm compelled. I want to know more. What exactly is my call to action? What is it I can do? And when can I see this darn thing?
Well, the main thing to understand here, and I'm sorry to go talk about politics and lobbying.
It's part of the business.
Exactly.
It's part of the business.
And unfortunately, it follows us in every single aspect of our life, even showing a movie or watching a movie. This movie, to be carried by the major names in the U.S., the major filmmaker names, has to have buy-in from the general public. Right now, as of actually last week, this is the information we got, this movie is considered a niche geek subculture movie.
Yeah, but there's a lot of those movies that make it out there through the independent circuit and through film festivals.
They make it out there. The thing is, we want to make this big. Of course, we can put it out. And I'm sorry, I say we, and again, I have no affiliation with 1 Billion Lives. I'm just helping them out. We are trying to get this movie shown in various places. And what we need right now is help from the vapor industry to get some PR stuff done.
Okay, so what can we do?
We can actually contact directly the 1 Billion Lives and the Attention Era team. by email, through the Facebook page, A Billion Lives, or through any kind of other social media. Really, get in contact with them, see what you can do, tell them where you are. There will be viewings all across the U.S. We're raising money to do that. That money, again, does not go to Attention Era. This money is just for promotion because, unfortunately, we need a lot of that in our sector. And the next things we're trying to do is have a showing of this movie in D.C. to our representatives, to our congressmen, just so they understand this. So this is something we can do, and we're already planning in the very near future. But there will be other dates. There are big city names going around. But really, we need the help of the vaping industry for this movie. It cannot be associated to the movie, but the cash still needs to be there to promote it.
Okay. Well, that's the information we want to find out. So go ahead and give us the sites, give us the links, give us the Instagrams. I mean, what are the various social media channels that people should go to in order to learn more?
Main one, the A Billion Lives website. Social media, at A Billion Lives on Facebook, at A Billion Lives on Twitter. Send in some messages there. If you look at all the past messages, you see that Aaron and his team answer usually within a couple of hours. No problem. You will get information and you will know exactly what to do when the plan is there.
Awesome. Well, this is the first conversation we've had on Vape Radio about A Billion Lives, but it will not be the last. So what I'm going to do, guys who are listening, that we're going to kind of keep you apprised of the process of how this actually rolls out. Believe me, as soon as there is a link to any information that actually says that this movie is going to be available to you to watch, we're going to go ahead and announce it here on Vape Radio. And so on behalf of myself, one, we appreciate your time, Arnaud, and please tell Aaron we appreciate his efforts. He funded this just from his own pocket, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right, and strictly as a kind of like a curiosity thing that he decided to do a deep dive.
That's it.
Well, I think it's good that we have a non-vapor doing this because otherwise there could be accusations of self-serving. And as it is right now, if someone is doing this strictly because they are wanting to find out the truth behind it, then so be it. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and
No
we'll catch
problem.
you next time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't go away. We're going to be right back.
We'll let you know as we get more information about the release of Billion Lives, but rest assured, the vape industry is far from dead. Yes, there will absolutely be failures and closures, but for anyone that has lived through adverse time, these situations create great opportunities as well. And I can promise you, we will be here to educate, motivate, and maybe even entertain you. One more time, don't forget VAPE U III, the Vape Shop Masterclass Summit, which is launching on June 23rd. Visit vapementors.com for more information. Over 4 days, about 18 speakers, and 20 hours from some of the most amazing thought leaders in the vaping industry. The event is free, and recordings of the event will be amazingly affordable for those that commit early. That wraps up Vape Radio show number 78, and thanks again for listening. Do you have a topic you'd like to hear, or do you have something you'd like to share? Someone you'd like us to speak with? Send us a note to norm@vapementors.com. And before we leave, I want to offer you all a great opportunity. Would you like to get your product, service, or message in front of our targeted vaping audience? Vape Radio is the #1 vaping radio show in the world with more than 1.3 million downloads since 2014. We were one of the top 10 business podcasts of 2015 on Podbean and beat up more than 130,000 other shows. For just $750, you get your company integrated within 3 different vape radio shows, and we're looking for 2 more advertisers to fill our spots. How about you? Contact norm@vapementors.com. And now, we're finally done, so until next time, vape on.